Okay, we're talking to Maura Sackett. For those of you who are in Maplewood know Maura for many things, one being a devoted teacher at Tuscan School. How you doing, Maura?
I'm good.
And longtime Maplewood resident, mother, and devoted educator, but also many might know her husband was Lee Sackett, who was a great musician and Hall of Fame musician, which is why we're talking to Maura now. He was, of course, drummer for Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, who will be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this weekend. And Maura, you are going there to take enjoy the celebration on Lee's behalf.
Yeah, that's right. They were nominated a couple of different times, and this third time, they were voted in. So it's a really big deal for our family. Lee would have been thrilled. It was actually our last family trip, was to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame about 10 years ago. We drove over there and, toured it, walked around, and it was a blast. And I think he would be, just getting such a kick out of the whole thing.
And, of course, Lee passed away about a year and a half ago. But you both lived here. How long have you been in Maplewood?
We moved here in the fall of '96, so we're coming up on 19 years.
And you have two sons, of course, Sean and Cameron, and they both raised here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Went through the school system and graduated from Columbia High School, and Sean still lives here, and Cameron is back to our Brooklyn roots. Excellent.
Now, tell us what exactly are you going to be doing? You're going to Cleveland, which is they don't usually have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame events there, even though that's where the hall is. So that's a fun thing.
They do it actually. I think one of the deals that they made was it has to be there every third year.
Ah, very good. So what exactly are you going to be doing there on Lee's behalf and to be involved in the ceremonies this weekend?
Well, I'll just kind of be his, receiving the induction on his behalf. The band will, go up on the stage, and I'll be there in his place. So I have to speak. I was trying to just think of, who he would want to thank and acknowledge, and that's what I'm going to be doing.
And you're leaving on Friday.
Right. There's some events Friday afternoon and evening, and Sean and Karen will get an opportunity to watch some of the rehearsals of the bands. It's a really great class that's being inducted. So that's just that in itself, just seeing the show and all the musicians and the jams and everything's going to be really exciting.
Excellent. And then this all gets shown on TV probably, in June or July?
Yeah, I think the first showing is going to be on HBO on May 30th, and then, they run anything on HBO over and over and over again, so that'll be, that'll be my summer viewing.
Now, how did you and Lee meet? You have a musical background? How did you two get together? And you were married for many years.
Yeah, 29 years before he passed away. It's kind of a long story, but I'll give you the synopsis. We met through a mutual friend down in Florida. Originally, the band was just breaking with I Love Rock and Roll, and I had graduated college, was working down there. And we met briefly, like, hello, how do you do? And then we reconnected when I had moved to New York, and he was getting ready to go tour Europe, and I was, at that time, a model and was going to do some work over there. And, we kind of made a plan and had dinner in Germany together, and the rest, as they say, was history.
Now, what were you had gone to college where?
At Catholic University.
Excellent. That's in Washington.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you were in Florida working or looking for work, or what?
Oh, no, I was working. I was, living on the beach and working in a rock and roll bar, actually, the Agora Bar, of which there's the original one's actually in Cleveland.
Excellent. And so you were doing that. This is all pre-teacher mode.
Yeah. I had another career. Teaching is a second career for me. I was an actress and did that for quite a number of years, to more TV commercials and industrial films. And, as things kind of moved along in our life, it seemed like it would be a better idea to get something a little more secure. And teaching's been fabulous. I love teaching. It's a very intellectually stimulating career. And I like to joke that I have a captive audience every day. So.
Yes, and a very grateful audience. Just to full disclosure, my son Cole is in Maura's class, and my daughter Chloe went through her teaching experience at Tuscan. So we're extremely biased in our fondness, but also, and I think you might remember when we first met at a teacher conference, I was very interested in the musical legacies of the family, because I remember growing up in the '80s, listening to Joan Jett and going to concerts and that whole musical world. Now, so he had already hit his big time. They had hit the big time with their big hit, "I Love Rock and Roll," when you two met. Or was it just happening? You tell me.
It was just happening. Yeah, they were still playing like the small clubs, so it was just breaking out.
Now, as you're in Florida, how do you meet this rock and roll man, this rock group?
The person that was a mutual friend was a program director for a big rock and roll radio station down there, so it gave me an opportunity to meet a lot of interesting people like U2 and Rod Stewart, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. So it was just, sort of an interesting, wild, fun time of life. And met Lee sort of in that same way when they were coming through. The band was and is still tight with my friend Neil. So that's how we met.
And then, so you hooked up for the first time really in Germany, and then how soon after were you married, or was it a few years?
I would say within the year. That was 82. And then we were married in May of '84.
And then they're out on the road and just hitting the big time. Did you go along with the band a lot, or sometimes, or
sometimes,
not really?
Yeah, we would meet up in various places. Like his folks at that time, Lee's parents lived in Florida, so I would go down there and meet him. We did a really fun, or they did a show in the Dominican Republic, big outdoor stadium. That was good. But most of the time, the band was the band's business, and the wives and girlfriends weren't always, hanging around. They were off doing their work.
And his devotion wasn't just, was he really always wanting to be a drummer? Was he into other musical areas or creativity? What kind of got him into the music
definitely
world?
He was a drummer. He really wanted to be a drummer from when he was probably fell in love with the Beatles, like so many people did back in those days. Mm-hmm. And, grew up in Brooklyn and had a mother who was devoted to allowing him to practice in their apartment and would put up with the neighbors' complaints, and had high school. Did a lot of playing in the New York scene, in the late 70s, the CBGBs in Max's Kansas
Oh, yes, sure.
He was in a band called the Boys that, toured the country. So sort of became known on that scene, and that's how he then ended up, kind of connecting up with Joan Jett and the Blackhearts.
So he had a real rise up in the early punk rock scene and in New York. And what did he ever talk? Go ahead.
Well, he was just like he played with the Sylvain from the New York Dolls. He was on his album. Just kind of all of that world, the Ramones and Thunders, and just kind of that everybody that just mixed around together at that time.
And what did he used to tell you about his musical views? I mean, was he just a drumming fan, or was he a real punk rock fan, or did it go beyond that? How did he kind of?
No, he was much more. He was actually took lessons with Bernard Purdie.
Wow.
And, was a really loved the blues. Really loved the blues. Was into the Allman Brothers when he was coming up. So he wasn't like Mr. Punk by any means. He had a broad range of, like I said, the Beatles, of rock and roll influences and pleasures himself that he liked to listen to.
And what was it like for you two? You had a long-running marriage, and marriage probably does not do well in show business. What kind of kept things going for you guys through all those years?
I don't know. We loved each other.
Just good, honest relationships.
Yeah,
that's great, because that says a lot about the kind of relationship you had. And how about raising your children with the rock and roll background? Although they kind of came later.
Yeah, they were. That's one of the reasons this is going to be special. Going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with them is that kind of chapter of our life was pretty much finished. I mean, they've seen all the videos, and we have the gold and platinum albums in the house, but it was just like, oh, that's what Dad does. So this will be really wonderful for them to see, sort of in context, who their dad was and the respect that he had in that world. So I'm happy for that.
And don't they have some of their own musical interest?
Sheldon plays the drums.
Yeah, I heard he played drums.
Not terribly seriously, and as far as like touring or anything, but he's done some. He had some bands in high school, and still goes to his friend's studio and bangs it out.
And then when did you two? You said I think earlier that he was the one who kind of found Maplewood. When did you guys land here, and what brought you to Maplewood?
Well, like many people in the city, we had 2 kids, and we were particularly thinking about the schools. In New York, it's a big scene to have to get into like middle school and high school, and I just sort of saw that coming, and we needed more space, and this was a suburb that was on the train line, because at that time I was still acting, and he had a job in the city. So we just loved the feeling of Maplewood. It was, not like your sort of my image of a suburban town. I mean, I grew up in the suburbs. My dad was in the Army. We moved around a lot. But there was something just unique about Maplewood. It's, I liked the fact that I could have the kids go into town. There was a certain freedom where they could walk to places or ride their bikes. You didn't have to be driven everywhere. And, the community just seems like a lot of like-minded people. So we felt right at home right away. Right,
and there's a lot of creative people here, as you know, a lot of writers, a lot of musicians, actors, actresses, and that it does kind of have that sort of open feel to it. And then he retired from music and got into, what was it, kind of creative furniture? Yeah, he sold office furniture, and he was very good at that too, often the top salesman. He was just a very likable, charming person, and kind of whatever Lee set his mind to, he just did it. He was, he built furniture in our house, like, I can figure that out, and just did it. In fact, the bed that we have is a bed he just built. So he was just the kind of guy, always looking out to take care of his family the best he could, and he did. And then what about Maplewood? Do you think you guys have lived here how long now?
Almost 19 years. Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of kept you here, even though with the changing approaches? And then when did you get into teaching, and how did you land at Tuscan?
Well, I mean, like I said, this was a comfortable place for us, and I love my house, and have a lot of really, really good friends that live here. And I went back to school to get my post-baccalaureate certification as a teacher. I wanted something secure, as Lee was sick and got sicker. I just needed something that I was stable, and turned out to be a good move for all of us. And now I'm still here. I have a 5-minute commute to work, and I just really love being here.
And what is anything you remember, just to get in the rock and roll days, anything that stands out that maybe people don't realize about the Blackhearts and Joan Jett, or just about what it was like to be married to someone in that world at that time?
It was an exhilarating time. It was our youth. It was even at the time, knowing this was amazing. I have like this picture in my mind of leaving Brooklyn, driving in his little 356 Porsche City Bottom South.
Oh, very fun.
Across the Brooklyn Bridge, and just seeing the city laid out, and just, this sort of energy and feeling a part of it. And I remember they played with the Police at Shea Stadium.
I think you and I talked about, I was at that show, and you were at that show. That was fun, yeah.
Yeah, it was just, so there were moments like that are just, still very crystalline images in my mind of, I guess just exhilaration would be the best word to sort of encapsulate the moment.
Excellent. Well, we'll let you go because you're still getting yourself ready to go to the trip. What do you? This one last thing. What do you think it means for not only for Joan Jett to get in, but obviously the whole band gets in, and to get this remembrance of Lee? What do you hope people will know about him and take from this kind of accolade?
That it's a real honor. It's it's going to be something that my children or his children can go and take their children to. They asked for his autograph, so then that's going to be like carved into a wall. So just to me, that's sort of like that's your granddad, and he's just going to live on in the world of rock and roll. Not that his music, that every time you hear that song, I Love Rock and Roll, I feel like there he is. He's right there. So it's just, it's a really, really special thing for our family, for the band itself, and that, it's going to be something that says, yeah, this guy was good. And I think that that's fantastic. It's a real special thing.
And it's also a great thing for Maplewood. We're all very proud of that he gets this kind of recognition, and the fact that, here's another person who was a good part of Maplewood and helped our town be what it is. And I would give you great credit for carrying it on. And also for Tuscan, where your teaching is much appreciated, as you and others know. And I appreciate your time talking to us. Have a great trip. Enjoy, and we will look to watch it when it's on TV.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
You're
Be
very
well.
Welcome. Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.